This is a question that I really haven't been able to ask on this program before, but then again, I didn't really think about asking Chris Benguhe because most of the time we talk about the Catholic Church as a result of your columns in the Catholic Sun. You write for the Saturday Evening Post, but at one time you wrote for a number of tabloids, including the National Enquirer, and at that point in your life, you got a phone call early in the morning in Los Angeles, and you were assigned to do what?
To cover the O.J. Simpson story and the murder of Nicole Simpson and Ronald Goldman.
So what's it like being at O.J. Simpson's wife's home as they brought out the body bags with the bodies inside?
Overwhelming, especially since I didn't expect it. I was called in the wee hours of the morning. I lived down the street in Santa Monica, and it was what was thought to be just maybe a random killing. And I show up there, and I was the only reporter on the scene when I showed up. So it was desolate, except for these two bodies in body bags in this extremely affluent area of town, something you didn't expect to see. And I certainly didn't expect to see just how ghastly this scene was. We're talking mangled bodies. They were butchered. I mean, essentially butchered. And it's not something you can really talk about or do talk about often, but to see a butchered body is something that you never forget.
But the National Enquirer liked it.
Oh, absolutely. You know, they wanted they got a photographer down there within seconds to get some photographs. But the whole scene, you know, the Akita dog that Nicole Simpson had and loved was so loyal. It kept running back and forth to the scene where the pools of blood pooled up underneath its paws. So there was paw prints up and down the street of blood all over the neighborhood, and it was something that you just couldn't even make up. If I had made a movie about this and it hadn't happened, somebody would have said it was too over the top. And just to see the terror and the fear, neighbors, you know, coming out. What would it be like if you came out and saw two butchered bodies on your next door neighbor's lawn? You know,
but when was the first time that you or any of your associates in journalism said, you know what, maybe this isn't just some break-in artist who murdered these two people. Maybe this isn't some madman. Maybe it's O.J.
Well, as soon as I got there and saw the police protecting that scene so aggressively, I knew there had to be something else to this. Police knew fairly quickly, and when we saw how aggressively they were protecting the scene, we knew there was probably somebody that was important that was involved in this.
Because it's Hollywood.
It's Hollywood, and they protect their stars in Hollywood. That's what it's all about. Hey, it's tax revenue, right? I mean, you know, Hollywood. But I knew very quickly at that point that this was something extremely serious. And so you're going through the experience. You know, as a reporter, I knew this was a huge story. I could tell at that moment that I was on top of a huge story. But as a human being, it was so difficult to look at that. It was so difficult to think about what had just happened. I was starting to interview the neighbors, people who knew them very well. And you know, these people were just crying their eyes out to me, and yet, you know, this is great. I've got to move on and get the next tearful interview.
And there were the gloves and the Bruno Magli shoes and the blood stains and a really questionable alibi about being out of town. Mm-hmm. And so, is there any question in your mind, Chris Benguhe, having been there and lived through it more closely than the rest of us, any question that O.J. was guilty?
Absolutely. Well, I truly believe that O.J. was guilty of something, whether he was guilty of knowing who did it or guilty of doing it himself. He knows what happened on that night. And I was one of the only reporters at the funeral of Nicole Simpson as well, actually, and snuck into the funeral. And I sat right next to him as he cried basically crocodile tears over that body. And as a reporter for 20 years, you know when someone's telling the truth and when they're not.
Now, people right now are saying, come on, Chris, he's an actor.
Well, exactly, which is, you can tell when someone is authentic or when they're harboring something. And
why would he hide the identity of a killer if he knew who it was?
Well, for instance, if you consider the possibility that it was his son who did it. then you can see how potentially he may have wanted to cover that up or may have wanted to keep that from getting out. Could it have been done by both of them? Could they both have been complicit in it? That's also another possibility. So what happened after that fateful day consumed my life for about 1.5 years, because every day there was another clue, every day there was another interview, every day there was another piece of the puzzle. It's actually one of the few things in my life that's kind of left undone, as I really wanted to solve that and figure out who did it. But who knows? Maybe one of these days I'll still take a shot at it.
And when you figure it out and you solve the crime, will you come back?
Absolutely.
So that I can say, so what's it like having solved the O.J. Simpson murder case? And I can only ask, Chris Benguhe of the Catholic Sun.